Welcome to the What a Play podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hebert. As Lucas could not join us for another week because there's just too many things going on, and Lucas is neck of the woods, so I'm going at this solo. Week 4 of the NFL season is one of those. September football in general is a strange thing to talk about because teams are still trying to fight through conditioning that no one plays during the preseason. The soft tissue injuries that are going on. So a lot of injuries in the news cycle. But let's first begin with week 4's games. We've talked on this podcast, we talked about it last week, we talked about it on the NFL YouTube channel, NFL World YouTube channel, go check that out, and at NFL World 100. The Cowboys beating the Giants 20-15. And it was not a sexy game by any means. No, not sexy at all. A lot of flags, a lot of misplays, the Cowboys not having the ball for an extended period of time as the Giants were winning the time of possession battle. But those aren't excuses. Those are just facts. When you listen to the people of the media, though, they make it sound like as if it's the Cowboys' fault for that happening. And it is. It is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying you can't blame the quarterback if he's getting the ball and then he scores and the Cowboys offense goes and scores a field goal, but then the defense can't get off the field and has a 6-minute drive that they only allowed the other team to have a field goal in a 6-minute drive. You can't blame the quarterback for that. That's not his fault. It's not even the head coach's fault. That's the defensive coordinator and his players' responsibility to deal with. That's on them, not on the head coach, not even on the offense and the quarterback. So don't blame them. It's also one of those things it really bugs me a lot when a team gets just annihilated in the media. When another team does a very similar thing week in, week out, when they score 20 points a game and hold the other team to less than 20, and they win. It's not sexy, it's not high scoring, but they won. That's the important thing. You won. Doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 101. It don't matter. Just win the game and we'll clean the other stuff up. So, again, not a sexy game. We're not going to talk too much about it. Next up, the Rams and Bears. Bears winning this game 24-18. Talk about a not sexy game either. This game was brutal. I mean, I'm not a Rams fan, and I don't know a lot of Rams fans, but I'm guaranteeing they have all said, what was Sean McVay doing? Was he there? Where was he? Because that was horrible. And that's the best way I can put it. He was horrible. This Rams offense was horrible. They have no offense. Kyron Williams they didn't hand the ball to him. They wouldn't hand it to him. The defense was a disaster. You let the Bears score 24 points on you. That cannot happen. When I took the Bears, I said this on the NFL World YouTube channel. When I took the Bears, I said, gosh, why did I take the Bears? The Rams are going to win this thing. And I was like, I'm not going to change it just to say I took the Rams. Because that's not fair. Plus, guys could all say, oh, no, you took the Bears and then you decided you wanted to win instead. You weren't right for doing that. So I kept with the Bears, and they won. They won. Not a pretty game. I feel like there was a lot of games that were like that this past week. Just not pretty games, frustrating games, a lot of penalties, turnovers, not a lot of points. This was just an ugly game. I remember on Sunday I was watching Jets Broncos, and that was brutal. And hold on. So I can understand that. It wasn't a lot of good games. Next up, Patriots 49ers. Talk about a terrible game. This might as well have been Jacoby Brissett do not die game. That must have been this. I wonder how that conversation went at the end of the game. Did Gerard Mayo go and say, okay, Jacoby, I'm going to take you out for a beer. I'm going to go do this with you. You deserve it because you got destroyed. And it's every week. I feel bad for this guy. He's a sitting duck. There's nothing he can do. This offense is horrible. They don't push the ball down the field. They can't push the ball down the field. They're turning the ball over ad nauseum. levels. Their defense is struggling, yet somehow that's the best part of their team. They don't run the ball well. This is the truth. I sat there and I was listening to the Boston channels on Tuesday, and that's what they talked about for a good 15 minutes. They were just talking about it. What do you want Jacoby Brissett to do? What do you want him to do? And I saw some people say, put Drake May in and do what? Ruin his confidence? Get him destroyed in the pocket? There's nothing he can do. This team isn't good enough. Just leave it to Jacoby and let him go. Because this isn't going to work. You can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, this is not a good team. It's going to be that way. So whoever's the starting quarterback. Next up, Chiefs Chargers. +8 for the Chargers. Chiefs won 17-10. We'll talk about what happened with the Chiefs. I don't think they looked good. I thought, okay, this is another team that defensively they need to help a lot. Like, this offense can't consistently push the ball. That's what I took from this game. And the Chargers, they didn't score in the second, third, fourth quarters. But, you held them to 17. Derwin James wasn't there. You're injured beyond repair. Like, that's... And we'll talk about that, about some teams. That a lot of teams are just... They're getting held together with pins and duct tape at this moment. That's just the way it is. And that's the case for the Chargers. That's what they're getting held to. I was surprised, honestly, that it took the Chiefs that long to score. Yeah, that was not good. And with a Justin Herbert who could not run, too. He's a sitting duck. And yet you guys still had a hard time scoring. Yikes. That ain't good. Not good at all. Next up, final game we did the Bills versus Ravens. Ravens winning this game 35-10. We're gonna keep the stuff about King Henry for the news cycle. But this is the game I said they missed Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. They did. They just couldn't get open. Josh Allen was taking a lot of unnecessary hits. He turned the ball over. I mean, Lamar did too. But with Josh Allen dragging this team, and we're going to talk about him having to drag this team for the next 4 weeks. But that's all on Josh Allen and this run game, which you can't really run the football when you're down 25. You can't run it. You got to throw it. Next up, we get into the news cycle. This all happened in a span of about 8 days, I guess, at most 8 days. Micah Parsons has a high ankle sprain, unlikely to play for Pittsburgh, which would have been like a homecoming. He went to Penn State, so it would have been like a homecoming for him. Didn't. He's not going to be able to play a high ankle sprain. DeMarcus Lawrence, Lisfranc injury in his right foot. He's out. But all this news broke just as we went off the air on Wednesday on the NFL World YouTube channel. Brandon Cooks is out for Week 5 and could be out for any extended period of time. And the reason that is the case is because Brandon Cooks was having injections in his knee after suffering a meniscus injury and didn't want to have surgery, so he was getting shots in his knee. The Cowboys were told they knew this, so there's nothing illegal. It's not illegal. It's not against the NFL rules. But he had an infection in his knee. Very rare that it happens, but it does happen. So Brandon Cooks is not playing in Week 5. Talk about a team. And I've said this before. I think I said it on here before too. But I'll reiterate. Talk about a team that is held with pins and duct tape, and if there's a strong wind, they're in trouble. Like, holy cow, this is bad. 2 defensive players, 2 pass rushers that you don't have. You got a guy from the practice squad of the Commanders. Well, I mean, not the Commanders, of the Bengals. Excuse me, of the Bengals. You got a guy on the wide receiver end. He's out. So now you're playing a guy. It's on and on and on. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And we'll get into the news about Davante Adams in a little bit, but it doesn't stop. Talk about being put together with pins, duct tape, and if there's a wind, you might not be able to withstand that. For the Chiefs' concern, it's Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice suffered a knee injury I put TBD. The reason I put TBD was because they don't know about this injury. That's the scary thing. And we'll probably talk about this. I'm going to see if I can talk about this with Lucas next week, as we might have more information by that point. Because the doctors have said, look, more tests are going to have to be done next week because we cannot tell. There's too much swelling. Which, when I first heard that, was after the game, I think it was like on Monday, I heard that. I said, oh my gosh, this is the Ryan Jensen injury. Again. All over again. Just is it with a younger wide receiver in Kansas City. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you guys remember, Ryan Jensen, he was the center of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a few years ago, about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago maybe, he had a knee injury. And it took him about a week or 2 weeks to figure out, okay, yes, he did in fact tear his ACL. Because there was so much swelling, and it was like if they looked at it, it would swell. This is the same situation. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the Ryan Jensen injury. Again. And Ryan Jensen's career ended up being over. I hope that is not the case for Rashid Rice. I pray to God that that's not the same. I pray, like, I hope he's okay. That is devastating. Because not just a big part of the Chiefs' offense. He lays some receptions, I believe, in yards too. He is so young and he's going to get so much better. And now he's got this knee injury that could potentially end his career. Yeah, scary. So we hope Rashid Rice is okay. Hope for a speedy recovery for all these guys who have been banged up with injuries. Like New England Patriots, excuse me, New England Patriots center, and I should add to this actually, center and, excuse me, and offensive line teammate Caden Wallace. Both are put on the IR, but David Andrews, the All-Pro center for the Patriots, likely out for the year with a shoulder injury. He has surgery, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's not great. You lose two guys, two offensive linemen to IR. That's terrible. You hope it's nothing that goes and exceeds into next year. Because Andrews is one of the best centers. So him not being out there is a massive issue. I don't know if you remember, he had a blood clots a few years ago. And he was out for the whole year. And you saw how devastating that was. They need him. And their offensive line is not nearly as good as it was then. So that tells you something. Next up, the Christian McCaffrey injury update. That's the way I'm putting this. So Christian McCaffrey went to Germany last week and had treatments for Achilles tendonitis. I don't know if they're stronger. I would assume so. For his leg. He came back and told the media that not just does he have Achilles tendonitis in one leg, but he has it in both legs. It's bilateral, meaning in both. And according to Kyle Shanahan, it's in both, but it's more severe in the one they knew he had. But it is in both. That is devastating. McCaffrey had said, or it came out at least on Sunday, so it was probably just a reiteration of what he said before, of that he's looking for November as when he could come back. Early November. Which I took as that's when he thinks he can come back. Not as in that's when he's aiming to come back. But we didn't know at the time of the two Achilles tendonitis in both legs. We didn't know that. So now that's up in the air too. There's a good chance you may not see Christian McCaffrey at all this year. There's a very good chance. And if you do, how healthy is he going to be? Because, and I know the 49ers, they're very smart with this. They'll be very cautious with this. They're not going to put him on the field and say, okay, don't hurt yourself. Like, this guy's gone through injuries. A lot of them. In his career. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. It's been a couple of years. It doesn't surprise me that he has it. So, but talking now, we'll get some positive injury news. Nick Chubb off the IR. He had his 21-day activation window has been open. So he's back at practice. And this is the same injury he suffered at Georgia. So this is actually very impressive. I believe this is the same knee he suffered it from too. Not 100% certain on that. But him out there would be way better. Now, when does he play? I don't know. Probably not this week. Maybe not even next week. But at some point, he will get activated. And that will be a big news. Does he start the first time he comes back? Probably not. Maybe not. I would say no, but I'm not saying it's 100% no. But I want to see Nick Chubb out there. I think he's a good player, and when you see injuries like that, this is something you want for this kid. Like, he's gone through so much adversity, and you want him to do well. There's certain people you want to do well. When you have a guy who gets injured and got injured and gotten injured and gotten injured, and you just want to see him do well. That's the kind of the category Nick Chubb and even Christian McCaffrey fall into. Next up, King Henry rises again as he ran for 181 yards against the Buffalo Bills, which might get worse for the Bills in the next 4 weeks because Bills pass rusher Von Miller suspended 4 games for personal conduct policy. It is how it's considered. What does that mean? That means he got suspended for something that happened in his life that the NFL said, okay, now we're going to suspend you for. Do you remember last year, guys, when that report came out that Von Miller ended up being in jail for assault, and then the NFL didn't do anything about it? That's what the NFL did here. They did something about it. Now you ask, well, wait a minute, Jacob. That happened in December. We are in October. Why aren't they only doing it now? And because it's this simple. The NFL does things on their time, and their time alone. If they want to suspend you in January, they can. If they want to suspend you in August, they can. If they only want to suspend you 10 years from now, they can. It's what they do. It's what they do. And all these leagues do the same thing. Baseball did it with Pete Rose, the late Pete Rose, isn't in the Hall of Fame. Haven't put him in. Don't know why. They haven't done it. Now it almost be sacrilegious because he's dead. So that's the same thing. But doing it now, I think they're trying to say, well, we're setting a precedent. What precedent? That you're going to suspend the guy from week 5 to week 10? Now, in those games are the Texans, Jets, Titans, Seahawks. 2 of those games the Bills can probably win without Von Miller. 2 of them. Don't know which 2, but 2 of them. But not having Von Miller dramatically makes it harder. It makes Josh Allen have to be Superman. Something you're telling him don't do, you're now asking him to do because he doesn't have anybody. That's not good. That is not good. All right. Also, good for King Henry. King Henry has had over 300 yards, 330 yards in the last 2 weeks. He doesn't look 30 years old to me. I mean, like for an example, I'm 23 years old. If I look as good as Derrick Henry does at 30, I don't need to hear anything. I'm okay, we're good. He's 30 years old. He looks fantastic. He runs fantastic. He had, I think they labeled it the longest run in Ravens history, but only the 3rd longest run in Derrick Henry history. He's 30 years old. Everyone's like, oh, well, be aware of the 30-year-old running backs. He hasn't looked 30 to me. He looks like he's 25. I don't know. Moving on into, let's move on to perfect Goff. So Jared Goff was 18 of 18 in the game between the Lions and the Seahawks. 18 of 18 for Jared Goff. A few touchdown passes. I think it was 3. And actually a touchdown catch. The Lions only threw 19 passes, going 19 of 19. In fact, the last time that an NFL team has had a perfect passer, like in terms of perfect 19 of 19 or 18 of 18 or whatever, you have to go back to 1942 when I believe it was the New York Giants. Where was the Lions? No, it was either Giants or Lions. But one of them, and it went 1-for-1 because the rules were back then. If you threw the football and it hit the ground, not only did it count as an incompletion, the other team got the ball because it was the rugby rule back then. That's the last time it happened. It was 1942. Now granted, 18 passes from Jared Goff, mostly play action stuff, but they looked good. That's all you can say. First international game in London is between the Jets and Vikings. The 2-2 Jets versus the 4-0 Vikings. If I'm the Jets, you gotta show something, some sense of life. You played horrible last week. Your team until the final seconds or until like through the final minutes, the score was 9-7, and then you lost. You missed 2 field goals. The Broncos missed a field goal, so you had a chance to win the game, and you still missed. Like, that cannot happen. You gotta show some symbol of life, because the Vikings have been playing great football. The only undefeated team in the NFC. Next up, some more injury news. Malik Neighbors still fighting through his concussion. We'll see if he plays on Sunday. That's the best way I can put it. I don't know. And then Dolphins star pass rusher Jalen Phillips. Season ended, knee injury. I feel so bad for this kid. He had injury issues in college. He actually had to medically retire. Went to UCLA, got back into football, and he's having such a great season, and bang, he has a knee injury. Last year, bang, tears his Achilles. Like, I feel so bad for him. It's just, there's players you want, like I said before, about McCaffrey, Chubb. There's players you want to do well. You want guys to do well. And when a guy is doing really well and gets hurt again and loses the season, you're like, you feel so bad for it. You do. And hopefully all these guys are okay. And, I guess we'll see them down the road at some point. Before we get into the previews for week 5, the Davante Adams trade request. So I talked about this on the NFL World YouTube channel. It's also on Rumble. You can check that out. Where Davante Adams says that he didn't play in the game against the Browns. That should have been telling, but wasn't. Hamstring got a little tight. Okay, don't play. He's not expected to play this week either. Walks into the front office on Monday. Says, guys, I prefer to be traded. I don't want to be. Like, I came here for Derek. Derek is no longer here. I've caught passes from Jimmy Garoppolo, who wasn't very good last year, and I've caught passes from Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I don't want to be here. I want to have a chance to win. And then we talked about Antonio Pierce liking a photo on Instagram about how Davante Adams should be traded. Okay. Talked about that. Here's the news that broke on Thursday. And it's not surprising at all, really. Davante Adams said his preferred destination he would want to be is with the Jets. That is not a surprise at all. There is no surprise here. I don't care who you talk to. When everyone's like, that's a surprise. No, it's not. No, it's not. I don't know where you thought of it. Like, look, Aaron Rodgers has been with his quarterback in Green Bay. You don't think you want to go play with Aaron Rodgers again? Better than Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, and Aiden O'Connell. Way better. Of course. But he also said he would not be against any other destination, which means he just wants to get out of there. He'll do whatever. I'll go anywhere. Get me out of here. And Diana Rossini had said, what about the Cowboys? What about the Steelers? All these teams. And this is where it gets frustrating if you're a Cowboys fan. When you have the front office of the Cowboys going say, we don't need him. We don't need a number 1. He's a number 1. What? You don't need a number 1. You need receiver help. You need help. Like, you gotta do something. Yeah, we don't need him on 1. He's too expensive. Okay, first of all, I did not disagree that he's expensive. That's fair. However, you do have the cap space to do it. You choose not to. That's not the same thing. And you could go to him and say, okay, Davante, we're going to rework your deal. We're going to give you a 1 year for this amount of money that you're owed. Okay? Which I believe is, if I do my math properly, I think it's about, I think under 10. I think. So you could go and say, okay, Davante, we're going to cut the fat off this thing. We're making a 1 year deal, $10 million. You'll be here for a year, and you can be a free agent next year. A lot of teams do that. Now, again, this could be just a smokescreen for the Cowboys. Probably is. But it's also, it's kind of like this. The Cowboys kind of operate like a family that is in the midst of a divorce. Okay? It's weird, but they like, sorry. Like, we know you have so much trouble right now. But if you want another, no, I'll be over here. I don't keep that quiet. Keep that between us. And then there's two other people like, yeah, we want it. That's it. That's the Cowboys. And they're always in every thing. If you want someone to talk to, if you want another man, go over there. Just keep that quiet between us. It's what they do. It's what they do. They can't help themselves. They always have to be involved. Maybe that's media, maybe that's them, maybe a little mixture of both, but that's what they do. And then they make it sound like, no. But then they go back to them and say, oh, we're interested. Just let us know. And then that person chooses someone else and like, well, I'm going to afford it anyway. That's what they do. They do it all the time. But don't be surprised if Davante wants to go to the Jets. It's not surprising. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes to New Orleans. Wouldn't be surprised. Apparently, according to the Raiders, they are looking to move him for a second in additional assets. So let's see what happens. The Raiders have also said, though, they are in no rush. Adams wants to apparently be out of there, according to Rossini, ASAP, but nothing is expected to happen until next week at the earliest. So we're on Davante watch. Now, moving on to week 5 here. We first have the Ravens versus the Bengals, plus 2.5 for the Bengals. This is a game. These divisional games are closer. The last time these two teams played, Joe Burrow got hurt, and Mark Andrews got hurt. Regular season enders, I should say, because Mark Andrews did come back in the playoff game. I have Baltimore winning this game, but it's not going to be by much, actually. It's going to be 31-28 Baltimore. Next up, Bills vs. Texans, plus 1 for the Texans. The Stephon Diggs revenge game. The Bills have said a lot about this, whether it was indirectly a shot or a direct shot. They have talked about this, about how they called Diggs a diva at times, they did all these things, he wants the ball. Everyone wants the ball. It's not that hard to understand. With all saying that, without Von Miller, I'm taking the Texans. I don't trust them. At first I think I took the Bills. I take the Texans now because Von Miller's not there. So I'm changing my pick. It's the Texans with the score of 28-24. Next up, Patriots and Dolphins. Actually, Dolphins in New England. Patriots favored by 1. This is the battle of the horrible quarterback. That's the way I put it in the YouTube video. That's the way I put it on Rumble. That's the way I'm going to describe it here. It's not good. Snoop Huntley versus Jacoby Brissett. Get your popcorn ready. That's all I can say. Get your popcorn ready. This is going to be a barn burner. Or some kind of burning. Something's going to burn. I'm taking the Dolphins in this game. I don't trust the Patriots. So with the score of 20-10, 21-10, Dolphins. And next up, Cardinals versus 49ers. 7.5 point favorites. The 49ers are. That's a lot of points for me. Again, these games are close. I'm gonna take San Francisco, but I would not be shocked if Arizona makes this game or even wins this game. I wouldn't be shocked. So with the 49ers, 31-24. 31. Next up, the Sunday Night Football. Cowboys versus Steelers. Steelers favored by -1. This has probably fluctuated so many times. It went from 1.5 to 1 to probably 2, 2.5 back to 1. I wouldn't be surprised. These teams, like the Cowboys are coming off of 10 days of rest. Steelers a week. Steelers first loss. How do they bounce back? It doesn't look like Alex Highsmith is going to go. There's some injuries to the Steeler defense. But with the Cowboys and their injuries, this is going to be one of those games you don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to take the Cowboys only because this is a game they should win. Not because they will win. But I think they should win this game. I think, and I've said this off camera, I'll say it on camera, I'll say it next week even. You gotta split. You gotta split these next 2 games. Get to your bye week at 3-3, you would be happy with that. Because of all the injuries you have, to get 3-3 and then bye, okay. But if you're even 4-2, you would be ecstatic. But 3-3 is where you're gonna be. It starts this week against Pittsburgh in Acrisure, which I still call Heinz Field because Acrisure doesn't. I don't know what Acrisure is, to be honest with you. Explain that to me. Is it? I think it was a real estate company or an insurance company, something like that. It's still Heinz Field to me. Okay, it's yellow. It's Heinz Field. Okay, leave me alone. Yeah, I'm taking the Cowboys. This is gonna be a very low-scoring game, only because the Steelers play low-scoring games. That's the way they win. The offense is good at times and not so great at times. But the defense is going to make plays. Defense plays on fire, but the offense can't light the stick at all. That's all they can do. So they can't. They're trying to start that fire. It's not working. Meanwhile, the defense has started that fire, and it's burning, and that's all that's going to happen. So I'm taking the Cowboys to win with the score 24-21. And the final game, Monday Night Football, Saints versus Chiefs, -5 for the Chiefs. Without issue, guys, I'm taking the Saints. Only because I don't know where the offense will come from. Travis Kelce, I know he's going to get a lot of targets, but where else is that offense going to come from? It's going to be legit. We've gone in the way back machine at this point. It's 2024, but we're using the 2017 Chiefs. The 2017-2018 Chiefs. We have Kareem Hunt in the backfield. We got Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, and they're just going to be dealing. There's just no Tyreek Hill. But yeah, I'm taking the Saints. It'll be a good game, I think. But with the score 21-17 Saints. And that is the What to Play podcast for week 5. Let me know in the comment section who you think is going to win in week 5. And when does Christian McCaffrey come back, if at all, during the NFL season? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.